I've just pressed record as well. I've got a little circle going round and round. I don't know whether it's thinking about it.
Got the recording.
Well, the recording started, but the live streaming has got a little circle. We do have a backup, everybody, so we are going to be recording the session, and then we can put that out if the live streaming doesn't work. Everyone keep your fingers crossed. See what's going on. Stop that. I'm going to try it again. Okay. Still got the little circle. Just getting another minute. I think that's going to work for us, is it? We may have to go with plan B.
Is everything set up as it was earlier?
Yeah, exactly the same.
Oh.
Just got the circle going round. Just it says start streaming and then it's just going round and round, you know, if it's like it's thinking about it.
I think it'll kick in.
If I was a YouTuber, I'd know how to do this pit-pat, wouldn't I?
You want me to put a note into the YouTube chat?
Yes, please. Oh dear. It wouldn't be live streaming and we wouldn't know about it, would it, Paul?
I've got it open here. It's not live streaming.
No. Well, that's a shame. Should we go with plan B then, everybody? Yeah.
I mean, you could try
I'll take
and
that
try and get it to cut in as we're doing it, so it might pick it up at some point. But yeah, okay.
Let me get my presentation back up.
So shall I work on the assumption that we think that it's on YouTube and just do the same intro with the YouTubers as well?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, Nick. I think we'll probably include this in the recording as well, because that's that's the reality of doing these things sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So ready to go?
I'll put the holding slide up, Nick. Give me 1 second. Right, ready.
Welcome everybody to this online consultation hearing today on the proposed changes to service at local community hospitals in Mid and South Essex. This is an additional hearing which we're doing online today. It's in addition to the one that we did live in Malden last month, and because we've had so many people wanting to make submissions through this medium, we're running this online session today. Right, so it will be broadcast on the internet, so you'll be able to watch this later, and you'll be able to see what everybody has basically said during the course of today. With me, I have panel members Claire Hankey, Caroline Dawson, Deborah Goldsmith, and Tina Starling, who will introduce themselves in a minute, together with presenters Linda Peggs, Kirsty Jenkins, and Donna Murphy, who will be presenting to us what they think the panel need to think about as part of this consultation. The format for this hearing is that each presenter gets a 30-minute slot, of which they get 15 minutes to put across what they would like the panel to think about, and the following 15 minutes is dedicated to a combination of questions and discussion. Questions from the panel members to the presenters about what they're presenting, and discussion between the parties in relation to that. Okay. When we get to the end of the final submission, all right, I will give you an update of what basically happens next. But before we go any further, can I ask Claire? Claire, would you like to start off by introducing yourself for everybody?
Yeah, thank you, Nick. So my name is Claire Hankey. I am the Director of Communications and Partnerships for Mid and South Essex Integrated Care Board.
Fantastic. Caroline?
Hi, I'm Caroline Dawson. I'm a community stroke matron for South East Essex, and I'm the joint lead stroke steward for Mid and South Essex.
Okay, Deborah?
Hi everyone, my name's Debbie Goldsmith. I'm the Director of Midwifery for Mid and South Essex.
And Tina?
Nick, I'm not actually on the panel, so I won't.
Oh, okay. Apologies. All right. Sorry, Tina. We have Tina here together with Gail and Paul, who are observers, basically, and Gail is running the facilities today. So I'm going to go straight over to Linda then. Linda, perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself, and then you can start your presentation.
Yep, hello. Slightly nervous, just thought I'd mention that to start with. My name's Linda Peggs. I've been a Malden resident for 21 years. My family are all service users of St Peter's. I have 2 children of childbearing age. My mother's had a stroke. My husband has regular blood tests. I've had physio. So we're big users of St Peter's. I'm also a registered midwife. I work out of St Peter's as a community midwife. And today I mainly want to be talking about why I think the intrapartum and inpatient services at St Peter's shouldn't be relocated or closed. And I'm here basically to advocate for women who are already pregnant and those that are planning to be pregnant in the future, women who I think their choices are being taken away by this proposal. I just need to clear something up first of all, and I'd like to be on record, which is why I'm going to say it now. I'm slightly disappointed in the way that my application to present at this public hearing was handled. I applied online and then was called in via my line manager at work. So someone from the board spoke to maternity. I think that's very unprofessional, and I don't believe that's an appropriate way for that to have been handled. Gail has been very helpful in making sure that I am able to speak now. But I think that was quite poor to start with. And I'd also like to apologise for my referencing when you get my presentation, because it's appalling and not degree standard. So the first point I want to make is about women's choice. Okay, so for numbers of years, policymakers have recommended women have given a choice of setting in which to give birth in. So I've just picked out 3 examples from the last 3 decades about that. So Maternity Matters 2007 identified key targets to provide choice, access and continuity of care in a safe service with a national choice guarantee for women. Moving on 10 years, Better Births, published in February 2016 by NHS England, noted that women were not being offered that real choice in the service that they accessed, as was promised in 2007. And in its vision for the future, the very, very first point that it noted was about personalised care and saying that women should have a genuine choice about decisions about where they could give birth. Then jump forward another 10 years, 26th of February this year, MSC launched their new updated personalised care and support plan. Lovely document that we can discuss with our women about all the choices, including their choice of where to give birth, which does mention the places you can have your baby: at home, in a freestanding midwife-led unit at St Peter's or Malden, in an alongside unit at Broomfield, Basildon or Southend, or in an obstetric unit. So we're giving the women these choices, but on the other hand, we're taking them away. There's been a number of other reviews, publications, initiatives, all agreeing with this main theme about women being able to choose where to give birth. So my second point is about why we want women to give birth in a midwife-led unit, why we don't want them to go to an obstetric unit, and the benefits for low-risk birthing women. There's a huge amount of evidence out there that show it's safer and it's cheaper for healthy women with straightforward pregnancies to give birth in a midwife-led unit. In 2014, NICE confirmed that more women should be encouraged to birth at midwife-led units rather than traditional labour wards, because the rate of intervention is lower and the outcome is no different compared with an obstetric unit. Lots more research provides evidence that shows midwifery-led care is a more evidence-based strategy to improve maternity care. It finds the universal philosophy of midwives rather than consultant doctors, emphasises care that encourages normal physiological birth and supports women to birth with minimum or no routine intervention. Cohort studies in Denmark, over 800 women at 2 freestanding midwife units with a matched cohort attending to obstetric units, concluded there was no increase in any perinatal morbidity, but there was a significant reduction in caesarean sections and other birth interventions like forceps. 2020, a study was undertaken by the National Institute for Health Research, and it looked into factors that influence the use of freestanding and alongside midwifery-led units in the UK. Worryingly, the study found that most trust managers, senior midwifery managers and obstetricians did not regard their midwifery-led units as being an important part of their as being an important part of their overall maternity package. The report also found strong evidence that midwife-led units reduce caesarean rates by 2/3, are very safe, improve patient satisfaction, and are 20% cheaper than obstetric units. Despite all this evidence regarding the benefit of birthing in a midwife-led unit, the research from the same study found that managers and doctors remain unconvinced about their actual value and believed incorrectly that midwife-led units are more expensive and less safe. So the final point I want to make is about the proposal to relocate intrapartum and inpatient services to WJC. I'd like to say I disagree that you're planning to relocate. Okay, WJC has been a freestanding midwife-led unit as part of the Mid-Essex facility for a number of years. Intrapartum care there was suspended in August 21, as it was at St Peter's, due to staffing levels at Broomfield. St Peter's was reopened, WJC never was. Therefore, we're not relocating our services, we're actually halving them. If we go back to 2021, there were 4 delivery rooms, 2 at WJC, 2 at St Peter's. WJC has space for 3 postnatal women. At St Peter's, there was a ward for 5, plus the DAU, which could be converted for 2 more postnatal if required. So considering the number of women that are coming through Broomfield currently, we're losing 2 low-risk birthing units and 7 postnatal beds. Broomfield already has less postnatal beds than St John's had, okay? We're often bed-blocked in the postnatal ward, and we know the effect that that has on the whole unit. Ultimately, this leads to delay right at the beginning of people's journey with induction of labour, because we don't have the space to move those postnatal ladies on. I'd also like to counter what you said in your proposal document, WJC is not a purpose-built ward offering better facilities. It's a converted ward. 2 of the postnatal rooms currently don't actually have the correct beds. They have a double bed because the doors are not wide enough for them to put a postnatal bed in. This is a real problem for staff. So staff that are there to give breastfeeding support mainly for these ladies, these low-risk ladies, are having to bend over or kneel down because the beds won't raise because we can't get the real beds in because the doors are too small. They also, the way the location there, the way the layout is at WJC, the postpartum women have to go through an outpatient waiting area to get to the toilet, which you can understand is not suitable for a lady that's just had a baby. Please don't misunderstand me. WJC is a fantastic facility and I want it to be kept open. I had the joy of having my first birthday the other day. I went on call over to WJC and we had a lovely birth, and it's a fantastic facility. But what is best for the women in our area and for women who access care throughout our area is that we can keep both WJC and St Peter's open. Then they've got a real chance of deciding where they can give birth. So I've really rushed that, quite nervous reading it out. So thank you for listening to me and giving me my opportunity to present my views. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Linda. And apologies to hear about your, your build up to this. I'm sure that somebody will be talking to you about it and dealing with that. Panel members, anybody would like to open with any questions or discussion with Linda? Okay, Debbie.
Lovely. It's nice to see you, Linda. So you're very welcome. And you didn't come across as nervous. You came across as very knowledgeable, very confident. You'd obviously taken the time to do your research and you were really, really credible. Just a couple of things for me. I'm really sorry to hear about your application because I'm not aware of that. And maybe we can have a conversation after this meeting if you want to, so we can look and see exactly what happened. So that's about that point. And I think that was it really. You just made some really valid points about WJC that I was not aware of. So things that I can take away from this in terms you said about the beds and the doors. And so I can take that from this meeting and have a look at that. But I just want to say thank you for taking the time to come today, to do all the groundwork that you've done, all of your research, and to be really credible to represent your personal life as well for your family, but also our midwifery workforce. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Claire?
Thanks, Nick. And thanks, Linda. Just to echo what Debbie said, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to come and advocate so strongly on behalf of the population across the Malden district for this. I just had a couple of things, and this is partly my ignorance around kind of maternity practice and stuff, but also just to kind of unpick a little bit of the things you've said. I know Debbie will take back some of the things you've said around the location. I suppose for me, it's understanding the workforce issues behind being able to open 2 units. If part of the struggle that we've been kind of clear about is that we're not able to recruit enough staff to resource the units adequately across both the acute units and the freestanding units. So I just wanted to understand a little bit from your perspective around how you think we could perhaps look at ways in which we could increase the population of workforce across those units.
I've got to be honest, Claire, I'm not a manager. I'm talking in an ideal world. I just, if you think about the postnatal ward, for example, run ragged most days because, you know, we have a high section and induction rate, and the pressure on the postnatal to get the women out of the building in a safe way, and I'm not suggesting anything happens unsafely at all, but there's a lot of pressure on the postnatal ward, which refurbs back all the way. Labour ward can't get ladies to the postnatal ward, DAU can't get ladies to the Labour ward. I understand, you know, you look back on statistics, how underutilised we were, but going forward with the increase we have of people, a ward with 7 postnatal beds and 1 midwife and 1 MCA overnight, because that's all you have on the postnatal ward, when you're thinking about the allocation of how many midwives to members of to service users, would just free up the midwife there and enable that to work more efficiently. But like I say, I'm not a manager. I know that there is a real problem with staff numbers and things like that. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm I suppose I'm in a perfect world of advocating what would be best for women. That would be to have both units open. And I understand if we can't, but if we do only have one, St Peter's was bigger. That's that's all I'm saying. But WJC is a lovely unit as well, and I certainly don't want that to close.
No, and that certainly came across in what you were saying. I suppose, and you're right. In an ideal world, it would be fantastic if we could have everything for everybody as close to them as possible. But unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal world, so we do have to sometimes make difficult decisions around this.
Sorry, Claire, can I just say one more thing about that? The demographics of WJC and the people that live around it is a lot smaller than the demographics from the St Peter's area. So I cover Witham, and a lot of my ladies are going to be able to go to WJC because they're not very far away. But when you look at the other side of Malden, and you've got out to Southwood and Ferrers, and you've got the Dengie, and you've got Burnham, they're not going to go to WJC. They're going to go to Broomfield, and they're going to increase then the numbers that are going at Broomfield, which is already, as we know, very stretched. So the demographics between, unfortunately, WJC and St Peter's, we have more ladies within our area than WJC does.
That was going to be my question, a bit around demographics. Actually, in your experience, are the people eligible for low risk birthing through a midwifery led unit? Is that continuing? Is it dropping? Is it higher? What's your experience in terms of the numbers that are able to participate in a low risk birth? Because I know demographically the population are giving birth older, which often brings with it more risk.
Absolutely. There is no doubt that our things are changing because of medical management. A lot of women that are higher risk are now giving birth that were never giving birth before. And without doubt that is happening. But we still have a lot of low risk women. We've got to think childbirth is a natural thing that unless there is a medical reason, shouldn't need any intervention. Low risk birth should be the ideal that we're striving for all women. And I think, one thing, and it's not about Mid-Essex, this is a national problem, but the way that we are medicalising maternity and childbirth in general, and we're inducing for more things, and we're then causing intervention and more sections, we're actually creating a higher risk demographic, because then on subsequent pregnancies, those ladies that could have been low risk to start with, that we have medicalised, then come back as high risk the second time. So yes, our demographics are definitely changing without a doubt, but there's still a lot of low risk women out there that we need to facilitate births for them.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you so much, Linda. And again, just to reiterate, I think you've come across really well and know your stuff. So and you made some really valid and important points. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Caroline, did you want to say anything or?
No, sorry, Good. I'll have to say maternity's not my area,
No.
and I haven't had children myself, so don't know very much about it at all.
Okay, all right, yeah. Linda, I think that was really excellent. Thank you very much for that contribution.
Well done.
And that's great, because we're actually now running perfectly, well, we're slightly ahead of time, which is great for everybody. So, Kirsty, I believe you're next. Would you like to present?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Okay, so I'll just talk. I'll try and explain my slides, my presentation that I had prepared.
I can pull your slides up for you, Kirsty. I can pull them up for you if that will be helpful.
Is that okay? Oh, thanks,
yeah,
Gail.
of course.
That's great.
Just give me 2 seconds, and I'll just make sure they're on there for you. No problem.
So I'll just introduce myself. My name's Kirsty Jenkins, and I am the lead speech and language therapist at Cumberledge Intermediate Care Centre, which is a stroke rehab unit at Rochford, and also in the ESD service in South East Essex as well. So today I'm representing the staff at the Cumberledge Intermediate Care Centre and representing views that have been expressed and conversations that I've had with the staff over the proposals to the option to either move all the stroke rehab beds to Brentwood Community Hospital, or to keep stroke beds at Cumberledge Intermediate Care Centre, and so to have some beds at Cumberledge Intermediate Care Centre and some at Brentwood. Okay, so I just wanted to give you an idea of the day, a bit of a day in the life of KIC. So I wanted to give you an insight as to what a stay on KIC looks like. Our staff dedicate themselves to providing care and rehabilitation for our patients. Throughout the week, we run a variety of groups and activities, not only to work on their physical, cognitive and communication goals, but also activities that support their well-being and are fun. We have craft groups, which involves painting, sewing, mosaics. You can see some of the wonderful creations there. We have singing group, and this is focused around carols at Christmas, and you'll find all staff joining in, patients singing and dancing as they are able. You can see some photos there of people being facilitated to stand and participate in those groups. So as much as it is an enjoyable activity, it's also facilitating their therapy as well. We have a garden, and we also celebrate public events. You can see the banner there that was created by the patients and sewn together by one of our members of staff to create that banner to celebrate the King's coronation. Staff give their time and their resources to provide positive outcomes for patients in line with our clinical guidelines. Patients have built long-standing friendships on the ward and continue to support each other once they're discharged. We have therapy dogs that visit regularly, and this puts a smile on staff and patients' faces. The goals are set at the beginning of someone's stay at KIC, and a commitment to work towards those goals is established together between the staff and the patients, and a full MDT work on the ward across the week to support the patients in their rehabilitation. Next slide, please. So I just want to talk about patient outcomes. So the facilities that we have on KIC, just want to explain a little bit about what they are, because I think they differ to what's available at Brentwood. Facilities at KIC, we have direct access, so they are located on the ward, to a gym and a rehab kitchen, which are used daily for rehab sessions. The design of the unit means patients have their own rooms and access to a lounge, dining room and garden, which they are encouraged to help look after, especially if it's linked to one of their goals on returning home. We create a more personalised step towards the return home rather than a clinical hospital style setting. We facilitate a range of interventions such as one-to-one and group therapy sessions. Our breakfast group runs daily, facilitating them to do as much as they can for themselves, because it's linked to what they need to do going home. And even they might make something like eggs for a small group of people. Along with their therapy to target their limbs, their communication and their cognition, these therapies are run by all members of the team, qualified and non-qualified. We have singing, like I've described, the therapy dogs, carols, celebrating public events. We also have direct access to local shops and the community, where patients can practice their outdoor mobility and social goals around shopping. I also wanted to say that clinical excellence shouldn't look clinical, so it should be needs-led and goal-directed by the patients. It involves creativity, passion and enthusiasm, which our staff demonstrate on a daily basis. We have a team of passionate and experienced staff that are very patient focused. The goals that we work on, just to select a few, are around toileting independently, making a salad for lunch, which they can do on the ward because we have access to that kitchen right off the dining room, or helping someone to relearn how to use their phone in order to access communicating with the people that are important to them at a time that suits them, and not waiting for someone else to facilitate that for them. It should not be overlooked that it is cheaper to provide the services in the 2 locations rather than in one single location in Brentwood. This would therefore provide value for money. We still have further to go to develop the service to meet the new stroke guidelines, and have projects in the pipeline to progress towards this. But we have patient input into our monthly team meetings, which identifies what we've done well and what areas that we can improve on. Next slide, please. So looking at staffing, there's a significant number of staff that would not be able to make the move to Brentwood as they live locally and use public transport to access work, or would not be able to manage the work-life balance and meet their commitments outside of work, whether this be care of children, older people, or their hobbies. We will lose some experienced, highly qualified staff if the beds are relocated solely to Brentwood. Maintaining a workforce at both sites will support broader social and economic development due to the roles being available at both sites and therefore opportunities available to more people who need to work in their local area. Working in large teams can be challenging to build strong relationships and good communication, which is key to providing a positive work environment in which to provide the best care for our patients. The bigger the team gets, this can provide more challenges in this respect. The whole team at KIC have worked really hard over recent years on the working relationships and opportunities now that staff take to support one another. There's a quote there on the slide from one of our assistants. She just says that I feel that the skill mix at KIC has taken time, mutual support, respect and hard work from all the team disciplines to achieve, creating an almost bespoke service. This also lends me to thinking about the possible issues around staff recruitment and retention should it be relocated. Currently, there is a project ongoing about stroke training, and it's a project that is part of implementing the integrated community stroke service. This is to make training available to the whole stroke workforce and will enable sharing of expertise to upskill staff. Sharing skills across the MSC will help improve outcomes in population health and healthcare. The sharing of skills and training will tackle inequalities in outcomes, experience and access. We have good communication links with the local services in South East Essex, both who feed into the unit at KIC and those services that continue to support on discharge. Staff meet with those services regularly, and this creates a really important working relationship. The consultation reports that staff and the public were consulted in November to December 23. KIC staff were not included on the list in the appendix for that, and I would suggest that they are a key staff group to be involved in such engagement. Individuals who are currently using the service are also a key group to consult. They have real and present understanding on what's involved in supporting someone after a stroke in an inpatient unit, and this may need to be done in person rather than online to increase participation. Next slide, please. So thinking about the accessibility, which is a really key thing that came through in the consultation document and the engagement. The importance of access to family and friends has been highlighted in all aspects of engagement for this consultation. This is for many reasons, for physical and emotional reasons. Significant others are key in the rehab process, and education and support for them also is important. Where there's an option to provide care in multiple locations, therefore closer to home for more people, this needs to be considered as an option that will meet the needs of those patients. Stroke patients spend longer in an inpatient setting and therefore may be isolated from family and friends for longer than if in a unit further from home. Discharges can be more challenging. Home and access visits will take longer and remove staff from the work environment for longer. To facilitate discharges and check equipment is suitable in the person's home environment. We're experiencing a higher number of people who have less support around them and require staff to facilitate safe discharges. The travel time will increase if stroke beds are moved to Brentwood. Rochford is on a bus route and directly opposite a train station. Examples are that from Shoebury, one area in Southend, there would be a 43-minute increase in travel by public transport and between a 25-minute and 1 hour difference by car. From Shoebury, that's the time between going to Rochford or going to Brentwood. For Canvey, the difference between travelling by public transport to Rochford or Brentwood is that it's 32 minutes shorter to go to Rochford, but it's about the same by car. And for Westcliff, another area in Southend, it would be 52 minutes shorter to travel to Rochford by public transport, and again, quicker to go by car, 18 minutes versus 55 minutes to travel to Brentwood. It's not only the geographical mileage or the time that is important, it's how easily people feel they will be able to access a different area that's really unfamiliar to them. So I've given you some examples of numbers there, but it doesn't all come down to numbers. We have many visitors that visit their friends and family daily, and this is really key. They're really involved in the rehab of these patients, and it would be detrimental to their rehab not to have them visit. Keeping the two sites provides local-based solutions and improves accessibility. And again, there's a quote there which highlights how important the involvement of family and friends in the rehab is. So one of our therapy assistants says she's seen firsthand the positive impact that family and friends support has on patients' recovery and the support that the staff at KIC give to family members. This will most likely be more challenging logistically if the location changes, not just for our older people, but also those still raising their families and with work commitments or their own health issues. They will possibly be unable to give the time and support they would wish to, and that their family members deserve. Last slide, please. So my suggestion off the back of what I've presented here is that there should be more direct in-person engagement with the current staff and the patients and their relatives to determine where the best outcomes can be achieved for patients, and to consider other methods of joint working across the two sites rather than the possibility of staff being on one site providing the best outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsty. That was very informative and very good as well. Okay, you happy to take questions?
Yeah.
Okay, who'd like to go first? Right, hands up. So Caroline first then.
Hi, Kirsty. Just want to say well done. That was brilliant. Thanks. And I have to say, I loved your quote that clinical excellence should not look clinical. I was like, that's brilliant. I think it should be a tagline. I really liked it. Well done. I just want to confirm, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but you're advocating that KIC, you're advocating for option B, so KIC would have 25 stroke beds and lose the intermediate care beds. Can I?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, lovely. I just wanted to check that. Like I said, I was 99% sure that that's what it was, but I just wanted to double check. Thank you.
Okay, Claire.
Thanks, Nick, and thanks, Kirsty, again. Really, really great presentation, really well put together, and really advocating on behalf of your patients and colleagues. So thank you for that, and really, really good insight there. It is a fabulous service, it absolutely is, and there's no question in any of this that the service and care provided by our staff across the system is any way detrimental. This is really about trying to build and increase the numbers of people that can benefit from these types of service. So I just wanted to make sure you could feed that back to your colleagues. We in no way is there any kind of detriment to the service they've been providing. We know that we haven't got enough beds for bed-based stroke rehabilitation, and hence why the kind of options were developed. I suppose in advocating for option B, that loss of local intermediate care beds, where actually it's slightly less specialised but still a specialised form of care, would that not be better locally to then co-locate the stroke specialist care, because that is the higher level of specialist care? Does that make sense? So yep. It's almost like a triangle, isn't it? You've got kind of stroke rehab at the top, then intermediate care, and then the kind of general access to community services. So I was just wondering what your thoughts were on kind of the removal of intermediate care from that location for the people of that population, whereas stroke rehabilitation would be open to wider population across Mid and South Essex. So it's that balance, isn't it, between who can access those very specialist beds versus the more kind of slightly less specialist but still important intermediate care beds.
Yes, yeah, I take your point on that. I think my response to that, sorry, I've got the consultation document here, but I don't think I've got the maps on me. But so intermediate care patients tend to spend less time in inpatient settings than stroke patients. So on average, they would spend 2 to 3 weeks in an inpatient setting, whereas stroke patients would spend around 6 weeks in an inpatient setting. There are also more sites available for intermediate care, so there is a bit more of a spread there, but I think it's really around the involvement of families so key for stroke rehab. It's less involved for intermediate care, and so in order to have access to their relatives, I think it's more important that stroke beds are local, because they would be isolated from their family and friends for longer, and they are more involved in the actual rehab of those patients. So not just visiting, but actually they perform part of the therapy. So to have them involved is, there's slightly more need for them to be available.
Yeah, great, thank you. That's really really good kind of insight there. So on the kind of converse, if you like, if we had the option A, it allows us to have slightly more beds, but also to repatriate some of the neuro rehab work that goes elsewhere. Is that not a benefit to the population more than kind of having it spread across 2 sites?
There obviously would be benefits to that. I think the problem with that is I see there could be an issue with staffing that as one unit. As I described, I think moving it to Brentwood means you will recruit staff from a smaller geographical area. Recruitment is a challenge already, and I think that will be a challenge to staff that, possibly because you're like pooling from a smaller area. In terms of the staffing, I think there's lots we can do in terms of upskilling staff, in terms of using lower banded roles, like the band 4 role, and also using the apprenticeship route, because a lot of the guidance, the clinical guidance, is that there's lots of other people other than therapists that can perform really effective therapy. So we do need to be creative and use our best working models in order to staff places appropriately. My concern is if it was in one location, would bet that if you had a large number of stroke patients and you had a real difficulty recruiting, or you had issues within staff retention and things, that would be confined to one area, and that would put pressure on staff and the outcomes that people could achieve.
So by having the 2, you've almost got a bit of resilience there across the 2 units rather than having a single unit. Okay, thank you. That's really helpful. There was just one other thing I was going to. It was talking about. You mentioned ESD at the beginning, and for those that aren't familiar with the acronym, it's early supported discharge. That's right, isn't it?
Yes.
And I was just interested in kind of the move towards more kind of home-based care. It is a general kind of move, isn't it, within healthcare to kind of support people more in their own homes. And I just wondered if there is more opportunity to look at that in the round, to make sure that we're not expecting people to travel more unnecessarily to kind of fixed points, if you like, but the opportunity and ways we could perhaps do something different to support more people at home.
Yeah, that's it. So the criteria for the stroke rehab unit should be that someone is not able to return home for different reasons, whether their care needs are too high, whether their safety needs are not able to be met at home. So really anyone that can go home after their acute stay at hospital with that early supported discharge team should be going home with a care package and that rehab service, which just to explain that, it provides the same level of rehab that's expected in the acute hospital but at home. So the criteria of these units should be that these people can't go home and that they're needing higher levels of care or safety support. So it's important to have good criteria. That's a really key thing, that people come into the service are the right people going into that service. Going home is best for people who can, because they can rehab best at home, where they've got their own things and people around them, and they can meet much more functional goals in that home environment. But for those who can't, we really try at KIC, we really try and create that step towards home from that acute hospital setting in a bedded unit, that, with those very medical aspects that need to be covered there. At KIC, it is that one step home, and we really try to make everything as functional as possible. I know over at Brentwood they don't have direct access to a gym and a kitchen. They have one, but it's not on the ward, so it takes extra time and extra resource to facilitate people to using that. It's and with all our caseloads are high at the moment, so it is time pressure. So yeah, again, staff are being creative at how they facilitate that for people. But yeah, it's really important that that step is a step towards home and not just another kind of clinical step in the process.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. That's really, really helpful insight, and thank you for taking the time to come and present.
Okay,
thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Donna, unusual because you're another presenter. Have you got a question or is it an observation?
Yes, I'm sorry. I know I'm not a panel member, but I did have a comment on the way that intermediate care beds are currently allocated. Patients are not allocated to the unit near where they live. They are allocated to the first available bed. So at Thorndon Ward, I have Southend patients at the moment. So where the units are, it is good to have a spread of units across the area, but having a unit in your area does not mean you will get a bed in your area, and hasn't done for a while. And I know there is part of the consultation document directed at maybe, improving that, but at the moment, just because there's beds at Southend for IMC doesn't mean patients will get IMC in Southend. So in that sense, right now, the beds could be anywhere. So I'll talk a little bit more, but it was just to let you know that that's how things are organised at the moment.
That's really helpful. Thanks, Donna.
Thank you, Donna. Okay. Kirsty, I've got a couple of clarification points, if I may. I think you made a statement where you said it's actually cheaper to deliver the services in 2 locations than 1. Is that right?
Yes.
I mean, with your submission, your written submission, have you got anything that illustrates how that works?
In the consultation document, it states that it will cost £14 million less to provide the 2 units and 0.2 million more to provide the unit at Brentwood only.
Okay, so it's not you're not contradicting anything in the document then, it's basically just reiterating. Okay, fine. All right. And the other one was your travel calculations and things.
Yep.
Were those different to those within the consultation materials, or are you confirming them?
I have to say I hadn't seen them in the material myself. Were they in the main document, or were they appendices?
I think they're appendices. Yeah. Okay.
I took those from Google Maps because that's how I believe someone would determine how long it would take them to get there. I feel like that's the most the place people would go to determine how to get there and how long it would take. So that's where I got my information from.
Okay. All right. That's great. That just helps with clarity on how you got there. Sure. All right. Brilliant. Okay. Thank you very much. Any more questions for Kirsty? No? In that case, Kirsty, thank you very much. You're welcome to stay, by the way.
Thank you.
And it's Donna's turn. Donna, would you care to take the stage?
Hiya. So I'm very nervous too. So my name's Donna. I am the therapy lead at Thorndon Ward at Brentwood Community Hospital, which is the intermediate care ward at Brentwood. And I wanted to talk to you about intermediate care beds in Mid and South Essex. My slides have gone. One moment, I'll open up my own copy. Lovely. Next slide, please. Oh no, it went funny. Anyway, so I've just put below the number of intermediate care beds in Mid and South Essex, and then the proposed number of intermediate care beds with either option A or option B, which are the 2 options on the table from the consultation. So at the moment, we have 99 intermediate care beds across Mid and South Essex, which are across about 5 sites. Option A proposes that we lose 11 of those, and option B proposes that we lose 8. Option B also involves the complete removal of intermediate care from Thorndon Ward at Brentwood Community Hospital. So if I tell you a little bit about Thorndon Ward as it is now, if we can go to the next slide. So, sorry, I think there's one in between. But we're a 25-bedded rehabilitation unit. We accept patients from Queens, Broomfield, Basildon and Southend. And as I mentioned earlier, the patients are allocated to us to the Mid and South by the Mid and South Essex Bed Bureau, patients are allocated to the first available bed, not the bed nearest their house. We predominantly take patients for a period of inpatient rehabilitation, but we also accept a small number of out of criteria patients who come to us for social health or nursing needs. Patients are accepted from the whole of Mid and South Essex, which includes Thurrock, and we accept patients with a high level of complexity, which are sometimes declined by the other units. So the teams on Thorndon Ward. So we are one of the only units that are fully staffed at present, and that's from nursing, therapy and the medical side. We have 7-day medical cover, including twice weekly consultant ward rounds, which is with our consultant geriatrician. We have a very experienced nursing teams, and we have integrated care assistants, which are healthcare assistants with extra training to support rehabilitation. We have a therapy service, which includes physiotherapists, occupational therapy assistants and rehabilitation assistants, which again at present is fully staffed. And we have an integrated discharge service on site, which is provided by Basildon and Thurrock University Hospital. But as I say, they're based on site to help us facilitate discharge. We also get support from community teams, including dietitians, speech and language therapists, tissue viability nurses, and podiatrists, among others. So go to my next slide. So our outcome data. So the outcome for the data for Thorndon Ward patients is very positive. So on admission to Thorndon Ward, patients have the modified Bartell index completed for that level of function, and then we complete it again on discharge. And patients on Thorndon Ward improve on average 5.66 on the modified Bartell index between admission and discharge. So many patients improve from a status of what's classified as total or severe dependency to a status of moderate dependency, with further potential to improve in the community. So to tell you what that looks like, most patients arrive with 24-hour care needs, and I'll describe what some of those are in a little while, and are discharged with single-handed packages of care. Patients have arrived using hoists and left doing the stairs. Patients have arrived using patient turners and leave walking with Zimmer frames. We manage patients with significant complexity on Thorndon Ward, including those with advanced dementia, traumatic injuries, including spinal fractures, and those patients often require collars and braces, which we can manage on the ward, complex frailty syndromes, and new neurological symptoms. So recently we treated a patient who had actually been identified as having level 2 neuro rehab needs, but was declined due to previous cognitive impairment, and we rehabbed him on Thorndon Ward. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, there's one in between, go. So our patient experience on Thorndon Ward. So this data was taken from the NHS Friends and Family tests, and it was the answer to the question overall, how was your experience of our service? So 69% of patients rated us as very good, 26% of patients rated us as good, and only 4% rated us as neither good nor poor, with no patients rating us as poor or very poor. We have written testimony from patients from our ward stating how positive they felt the impact we had on them was. And I've got a whole spreadsheet of it. I can send it to you. Next slide, please. So in the pre-consultation business case, they laid out targets for IMC beds. They quoted data on our performance, which suggested only 66% of our patients improved with their input from IMC. However, I cannot find out from anyone when that data was collected, but we know it was collected in 2021, which was a year when we were facing a great deal of challenge following the COVID-19 pandemic. Thorndon Ward specifically was operating on a temporary ward with extremely poor facilities and very low staffing. Now you can see our performance, which has been measured by the data I've collected between the start of this year and the middle of March, shows that 92% of our patients leave the ward with a improved level of independence or reduced level of dependency, compared to the target of 85%. These targets were set for after the consultation period has completed and all of the relevant changes have been made to the community beds. We do have an issue with unplanned returns back to the acute setting, and we would be very willing to complete a project on how we can reduce this. But what I will say is that many patients go back within the first 48 hours. So in reality, they weren't well enough to be transferred to us. And we do understand our colleagues in the acute are under pressures. I was working in the Queen's Frailty Unit at Queen's Hospital until October last year. I do understand the pressure they're under, but often they're transferring patients to us who are not well enough to be with us as yet. Discharge destination is very positive. We discharged 92% of our patients to their usual place of residence, against a target of 75%, which was set for 2 years after the changes from the consultation have been made. I haven't got data on exit delays, but they will be significant. We have a significant issue with care waits, equipment waits, and family delays. And then obviously the patient recorded outcomes or satisfaction ratings. I've already shared our data from that with you. Patients have very positive experience on our ward, so I feel we're already meeting that target. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of talk in the consultation about how rehabilitation can be delivered in patients' homes. And a lot of the time that can be the case. However, for the majority of patients that are referred to us, that option has already been explored and deemed as not possible. So many of the reasons they can't be rehabilitated at home and therefore require 24-hour intermediate care is unstable medical statuses. So patients come to us still having oxygen requirements. We have fully piped oxygen at Brentwood Community Hospital, and we will wean patients on the ward from their oxygen or arrange long-term oxygen therapy in the rare cases where we can't. With patients who arrive with unstable BMs and patients who arrive with unstable blood pressure, including postural hypertension, which is often not even diagnosed until they get to us because of the extended bed rest that they've had in the acute. Patients who have high level of nursing needs, including those that require 2-hourly turning, we can manage on the ward. That could not be managed with a QDS package of care, which is the maximum amount of care that someone can receive in the community. Patients with poor sitting tolerance, meaning that they couldn't sit out for long enough to wait between one care call and the next care call. Therefore, that patient would need to be cared for in bed at home, which is in conflict with the rehabilitation goals. Reduced safety, sitting in a chair, so they're unable to sit in this chair safely, unsupervised. So if they lived alone, they would need to be cared for in bed in their own environment. High night needs, including toileting. And I have to say, we often rehabilitate toileting, particularly night toileting. So patients, as I say, the majority of our patients go home and we manage to successfully rehabilitate their nighttime toileting. And patients with resolving deliriums who are not safe to live alone initially on discharge. But again, the majority of those we send home after a spell of time at Thorndon Ward. I have the next slide, please. In conclusion, I would like to support option B because it involves the smaller reduction in intermediate care beds and also the maintenance of IMC on Thorndon Ward, which is an effective service with good outcomes and good patient satisfaction ratings. We're already meeting the future targets for IMC beds on Thorndon Ward. And intermediate care in Mid and South Essex is a valuable service that can't be replaced by our current community services. Oh, I missed a slide. Where was my community services slide? So I have a slide on the community services on Mid and South Essex. And the reason I've included this is because, again, in the consultation paper, there was talk of patients being rehabilitated in their own home. At the moment in Mid and South Essex, most of the community rehab services are not fit for that purpose. So I don't know if we can find my slide, Gail. It's slide number 9. I think I got overexcited that we were nearly at the end, but there was a slide missing. Anyway, I can tell you from memory, in Brentwood and across all 3 areas in Mid and South Essex. Oh, it's not slide 9. You have different slide numbers to me. It's the second to last one, Gail. That's it. So in Brentwood, the community services for our patients vary. So South West Essex has quite good community services. So this is Brentwood, Basildon, Thurrock and Wickford. So they have the D2A service, so they can go out for 1 to 2 visits after discharge from either of the acute or us. And they can do safety checks, they can order equipment, they can troubleshoot, but they cannot provide ongoing goal-driven rehab. We do have Brentwood Raft, which used to be called IRS. Now they can provide up to 4 visits a week for 3 weeks, and they have a 48-hour response time. After that, patients will be referred to Brentwood and Basildon ICT, who have a waiting list and can go in about once a week. There's also a small amount of physio attached to the ECL service, which is reablement, if patients are accepted to reablement, which they will not necessarily be. In South East Essex, I've actually rung them today to confirm this. So they have the D2A service, which is the service which provides 1 to 2 visits after discharge for safety checks, as I mentioned before. And then they have a community physiotherapy service, which has a 1 to 3 week wait list, which is good. But they can only go out once a week, so they're not providing intensive rehabilitation. In Mid Essex, which is where we have our biggest problems, we have the D2A service, and then the other service for community physiotherapy is available through Provide, who can provide once weekly visits. But they have a 14-week waiting list. So we've had calls from a patient discharged from us recently stating that she's not getting any physiotherapy 14 weeks. They do have a physio attached to their reablement service, but I know that at the moment they're currently carrying a vacancy. So apart from in South West Essex, patients cannot receive intensive rehabilitation in their own homes as things stand. And therefore reducing IMC beds is going to drastically reduce the amount of intensive rehabilitation that's available for patients after their discharge from hospital. Thank you. Sorry, it was in a funny order at the end.
That's okay. Very good information, Donna. I'm going to open it up now for people to ask questions, if you're happy to take questions. Yeah. Anybody want to open? Yeah, Claire.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna. Again, just really big thanks for taking the time and trouble to present to us and to put across the information and insights that you have. And again, I'll say what I said to Kirsty, that it's no reflection on the standard of care and compassion that staff in these teams deliver day in, day out to our population. So thank you to all for what you do in that regard. The area that I was interested in was, you mentioned that Thorndon has a slightly different criteria and accepts higher risk patients. Is that right? I just want to understand that a little bit more.
Yes. Well, so it's a little bit anecdotal, but I've been there 6 months. So my understanding is that Housestead in Colchester, near Colchester, which one of our units is nurse led. So they will only take a limited range of patients. The other thing is that where we are set up with bays and not individual rooms, we can monitor our patients a lot more carefully. And therefore we can take patients that require cohort bays or close monitoring while they're in bed. So there's that factor as well. We also have piped oxygen at our unit, so accepting patients who are on oxygen wings is a little bit easier. But yes, just anecdotally, often when the information comes through from our screeners, the other units will decline patients and we will accept them. And as you can see from our outcomes, they do very well.
Yeah.
And the reason
go on, sorry.
I think the reason that we are keen to prove our value is because of the entire consultation paper suggested that intermediate care was underperforming and that stroke rehabilitation was more valuable. And I don't in any way doubt that stroke rehabilitation is extremely valuable. It's an area that I've worked in the past. I'm a physiotherapist by trade, I should mention. But intermediate care is important as well. And we clear acute beds, sometimes within 24 hours of referral, and we reduce pressure on our acute trusts. So reducing our beds will have an impact, and we can't be replaced by community services.
Okay, thanks.
And that's why we're keen to show that to you.
Yeah. And I can only apologise if that was the intimation that was taken from what was written. It wasn't a suggestion that intermediate care was any less valuable, particularly for those patients that are in need of it. It's absolutely valuable. In terms of the community services piece, so I know the development of virtual wards and all of that is still fairly in its infancy. Could you see in the longer term that becoming a bit more balanced across Mid and South Essex, so people have the same level of access across the patch? Because obviously we're probably basing what you've put there on old commissioning patches, probably when the clinical commissioning groups are in place. So obviously have been now one kind of commissioning footprint across Mid and South Essex. Is there an opportunity there maybe to look at things differently, do you think, in terms of that provision of community services?
There is, because in Brentwood, Basildon, Wickford, Thurrock, we have much better services. We have the virtual frailty ward is much more up and running, and the therapy provision is much better, but they still refer a lot of patients to us from Brentwood that they don't feel could have their needs met in the community. What the Brentwood patients often can do is be discharged quicker from us to the community, whereas in Mid Essex and South Essex sometimes it takes a lot longer because if we haven't got as much therapy provision, but we still take an awful lot of Brentwood patients who have very high levels of need, yes, so it hasn't prevented those patients coming to IMC, but it does accelerate their discharges for sure. Yeah.
And just to your earlier point around people being placed in the first available bed rather than the bed nearest their place of residence, how on average what's the balance in Thorndon around kind of those that are in the local area to that patch and those coming from outside?
I'd say it varies wildly. So I've gone through phases where I've had very few Brentwood patients in our ward, and then phases where we've had a lot more. I think if there's 2 patients on the list and 2 beds, they'll put each patient in the bed that's closest to their address, but not necessarily. We had a Colchester patient not long ago. And it's funny that Kirsty mentioned Shoebury Nest, because I did a home visit to Shoebury Nest and I know what that drive is like. So yeah, we are receiving patients from all over Mid and South Essex at the moment. I know there was a large piece in the pre-consultation business case about, the right patient in the right bed, and we would be very supportive of that. Patients do better when they're closer to home, for sure. It's as at the moment, how things are, we don't have a choice over who goes where, and neither do the patients. They have to actually sign a contract to state that they will go to the first available bed.
Okay, that's really helpful insight. Thanks very much indeed, Donna.
Okay, thanks, Claire. Caroline?
Thanks, Donna, that was brilliant. It was really, really good. I haven't really got questions, more sort of comments as such. I just wanted to reiterate what Claire said. Really sorry that you felt that IMC was sort of the poor relation to stroke, because that's definitely not the point. Although I introduced myself as the stroke matron, the other 2 services that I manage are IMC services. So 100% IMC is just as important as stroke. So I just wanted to say that. And then the other point, and again, I'm not expecting you to answer this, but I thought the data that you gave us regarding the outcomes that you got from Thorndon was really, really good. And I think it would be really interesting to see how that compares with the other IMC units. I'm not expecting you to know the answer to that, but I'm just thinking as part of this, that would be really, really interesting to see how it compares, and then potentially if there's any learning from that we can share across all of the units. I think that would be really, really good.
I think that the way we pull data at the moment for the units is a little bit unreflective. So I did that data collection by hand, as it were. And the one thing I did do was remove all the patients that were readmitted to the acute and didn't return to us, because obviously I don't have discharge data for those patients. When you pull data from System 1, it includes all of those patients and it puts their discharge score as the same as their admission score. Or if a Bartel index isn't entered for a patient, on discharge, which is something we're working on. They're in there for this group of patients, then it does again score them as the same as admission. So there's a data collection issue there. I suspect you'll find the other units data isn't far off of ours, but it's just how we pull it.
Okay. Donna, would I be right in thinking that you think that a review of all the data might have an effect on decision making?
Potentially, but mainly I wanted to evidence that the good outcomes on Thorndon ward and the impact of losing that service. As I say, we are the only fully staffed ward from our end of Essex. So Mayfield and Thurrock, or so the matrons tell me. And we have a really resilient workforce of local residents who went through a lot during COVID and still stayed on our ward. We have like daughters and mothers that work on our wards. It's a very family orientated unit. And I think if we became stroke, you would lose the staff from a very special workforce. And that would be a loss to Mid and South Essex. I feel very strongly about that. So I think that, yeah, I just want to sort of just say what a good service we're providing, and encourage you to consider keeping us as we are.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah. Any more questions before we do our close down? I think we've actually had today 3 excellent presentations with some very reasoned arguments and some very good informative data to go alongside it. So I'd like to thank Donna, Kirsty, and Linda. I think Linda's left. Linda left, didn't she? But thank Linda as well, because some really excellent information today. And I've got to compliment all of you on the way in which you presented. You did a really good job. All right. So I know you were nervous, but it was really good. So be encouraged. Okay. And thank you also to our panel members today. Some very good inquiry, questions asking of the presenters. And it was quite clear that you were really digging for some really useful information that will help you as well. Sorry, Gail, you're coming.
Just before the end, Nick, I just want to apologise for any people that are waiting online for the live streaming. We've been trying to resolve the technical issue, so sorry to anybody who is waiting to get on for the live streaming.
Okay, so this will be going out onto YouTube anyway. It's being recorded. It'll go out, of course. So again, for those of you who are online watching this later after the event, again, yeah, we apologise it didn't go out live for you, but you will be able to see all the information unadulterated, I believe. Yeah. Okay. Just so everybody is aware, is that this is as things stand, this is the last of the hearings. This one was put on as an additional hearing because the hearing that we did in March, we were oversubscribed, so I felt that we needed to extend it. But if for those people who have place submissions, there may be new information come to light today that might alter your submission. Feel free to do so. But otherwise, I believe that the consultation has a very short period left in it. And so if you need to make any responses, now is the time. Sorry, Claire?
It was just to say, Nick, while people potentially may be watching this online later, to say that the date of submission has been extended, so people can now put their submissions in up to Thursday next week, the 11th, rather than it was due to close today, but we felt we wanted to give people an opportunity to respond to any further information they may have heard.
Okay, so Thursday the 11th, you've got a bit more time if you want to put any extras in. Okay, or anybody new wants to put information in. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. And hopefully this everybody's had a good experience today. I'm sure there'll be plenty more talk between you. It looks like there's some interest there. So it just takes me to say thank you to everybody and wish you all a good evening and a successful end to the consultation.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.